Let me give you a statement. Team building doesn't work. Not because activities are boring, not because bonding is useless, but most importantly, organizations confuse energy with alignment. My name is Edward. Welcome to the 7th episode of SLA Work Smarter Daily, and today we're going to unpack why team bonding often feels successful but yet fails to change behavior. And more importantly, what leaders should design about it. I'm sure most of the team building sessions you join, you experience three things. Temporary morale boost. You feel good, energetic, recharged. Surface level conversations. You seem to know your colleagues better. Shared positive memory. You all had a good time. But there are another three things that you might have missed out. Leadership accountability, structural alignments back to your company when you go back to work, and of course, last important part is a sustained behavior change. So the question is not, was it fun? The real question is, did anything change afterwards? So to explore this today, I'm joined by team building specialist, Mr. Ivan. Alright, thank you Ivan for coming here to talk about team building doesn't work. I think it's a topic that you are very passionate about. Over the years of experience you've just shared about. I believe to our audience here also want to learn about how you build up teams, especially team with different dynamics, team with different characters, team with big team or small team or whatsoever, right? So I think let's jump straight into it. When we saw the topic, team building doesn't work, it's a bit scary. Do you want to share a bit more about what do you mean by that?
Before I jump straight into it, I just want to say thank you to SCIA and also to you for giving me the opportunity to actually come here and share a little bit about my experiences over the years in the area of team interventions, team building. Team building is a buzzword that for many years I think a lot of people misunderstood. I have been involved in team building or team interventions since 2000s. Since 2000. If you don't mind, I will just give you a bit of background to just establish a little bit of credibility in a sense. I've always believed in teams. All right. The emphasis is always about how we actually galvanize teams to perform at a better stage. So even from school days, I've always been very involved in clubs, associations. I was an Interact president of the Council of Clubs and stuff like that. And I think that was where I sort of learned about human dynamics, people, galvanizing teams and people to work together. But over the years, as a team specialist and also someone who has actually been conducting team building programs, I've realized that there are certain issues when it comes to running team building programs that is out of the office. Now, it's a bit of an antithesis to team builders like me, for example, someone who has made a living, made a career out of team building programs, to come out after more than 20 over years and say that, look, team building doesn't work. There's a caveat. Team building is a very important aspect of a team. You need to build your team. But I would like to actually put the fact that when we talk about team building, it's always about a team building activity or a program that we are most commonly aware or familiar with, which is taking teams out, going for certain programs, whether it's going to the beach, going to doing activities camping, whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad. I think it's an important element for any team to be able to go out and do an activity like that. There is always a place for it. But the problem with all this is that it is feeling based. In Malaysia, we used to have a TV channel, a TV station called the NTV7, and one of their slogan is "Feel Good." Okay, team building is a feel good factor. Team building is a placebo. Placebo means it actually dulls you to a certain feeling that, you are actually doing it right. It's not a panacea. Panacea is actually the medication for you. So we need to be able to differentiate between whether team building is a placebo or team building or team interventions strategies is a panacea. And it's more than that. And then coming into Cambodia, and I think over the years, working with Cambodian companies and organizations, I've also begun to realize that in just the same as in Malaysia, we tend to want to bring the people out for this feel-good factor, thinking that this feel-good factor can be translated back at the workplace. And more often than not, it doesn't. In fact, it does bring the opposite result that was not supposed to be part of the plan or intended. Not because it was purposely done that way, it's because that team dynamics is more complicated than taking a group of people out for a team building activity, expecting them to change for the better. And that is why I'm saying that team building doesn't work. So it's with a full caveat that it will work if we understand how teams work in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's where the basis of what we're talking about, team building doesn't work. Of course, we can dive into understanding a lot more into how do we make teams work.
Yeah, I think I like the point where you talk about feel good, feel happy, right? So a lot of times, even myself, right, we go for retreat activities, we always have this moment, I feel happy with the team and energetic, the vibe is so good, we are all together doing all these things. But I think the point you mentioned, after you go back to workplace, office, the alignment not there.
So what happened? So the reason is because we are human beings. You got to understand that human beings are emotionally and feeling based. A lot of us tend to seek out this kind of outcomes, all right? And it's natural. We have dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. These are all, endorphins. These are all our chemicals in our bodies that make us want to do certain things. These are all scientifically proven anyway. So I would go as far to say that team building activities, any kinds of bonding activities, it will definitely have a bonding effect because there is a certain level of dopamine that charges us, because whenever you take, if you go out with a friend or you go out with a group of people, go out and have lunch, dinner, or go shopping, for example, there's a dopamine feeling.
Yeah. True.
All right, you will come back feeling happy just because you bought something, or you saw something, or you felt something, and that is something which we all desire, right? And each one of us have a different level of dopamine levers, so to say. Some people have a different things, and that's why it's also counterproductive to just level on dopamine, because different people are, you have different levels. You are triggered by something else, someone is triggered by something else. But generally, it's pretty much the same thing, which means that as long as I feel good, therefore, it must be good. Nothing wrong with that. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go out to do team building just because we don't want to get that feel-good factor. The feel-good factor is a byproduct. You will definitely have a feel-good factor, even if it's just taking a group of people shopping. So why isn't that a team building activity? Can we just bring them out to have a dinner and call it team building activity? Of course you can, because it is an activity that actually allows people to mingle, connect, and mix. And if you get that feel-good factor, you come back feeling good. And as a result of one activity, I realized that, hey, I like you. Why? Because we share the same interests, you eat the same things, you talk about the same things, and you enjoy that emotion. And therefore, I will come back to that emotion again and say, hey, after this activity, come back, hey, I know that you like to eat amok, for example, or eat lokla. Then I know next time when I go for lunch, I can actually ask you to go. And then from then, you actually build a deeper relationship, deeper understanding, and whatsoever. Isn't that team building? That is team building. And that is the context whereby we allow an activity like this to take place to facilitate the better understanding of each other. Hence, there's a runner problem. It's a double-edged sword. While you can also have a good outcome because I know somebody better, he likes this, he likes that, and we have shared the same interest, there is also the other side of it. There are things that you don't like, there are things that I don't like, and therefore because of that, there may be things that pushes us away as much as things that will pull us together. So there is always a byproduct, two sides, the positive side as well as the negative side. You might never know that certain things that you do, you say might turn me off, and I would in a group setting, in a social setting, it is actually not very smart or nice of me to actually say that or react to that. So what you will normally have is people will be superficial.
Yeah.
They will smile at you and say, yes, but actually I don't like it.
Politically correct.
That's right, to be politically correct. So in a social setting, obviously in a team building environment, you will probably not be aggressive to one another. You'll probably not, but from that experience itself, if it's not properly mitigated or properly addressed, it will become a potential tumor that could be cancerous back at the workplace.
Yeah.
So then you can see there are two potential outcomes. One, I like you, I will go lunch with you over there. And then, but I can see that this group of people becoming a clique, and they always go out for lunch, and this group of people who don't go out for, they're like, okay, so then you might end up from a team building activity that was supposed to pull everybody together, you be separated. And I'm not saying this just because it can happen, I'm saying this because it is potentially possible.
Yeah.
And if you don't craft a team building activity and just let team building activities present itself in its own natural form, this will naturally happen. Now, could it also be that everybody likes each other? Yes.
Rare.
But rare. Because basically you mean the whole organization, everybody's going to like everybody? No. That is why you will probably need to have a properly mitigated, a properly crafted team activity that actually addresses all these issues, so that when you come back or when they are at work, they actually learn how to actually work well together.
Yeah.
So actually then you realize that then what's the whole point of team building activities then? Right? If I'm going to go out there and I also cause other negative things, I'm going to go back to the first. That team building activities is only a platform. It's merely a stage whereby you allow people to come, and because it is a social setting, there are people who will act politically correct. So this is something which you have to actually be aware and accept, but not a matter of accept. You got to put it as a fundamental understanding. It's a principle that when you are in this environment, it is a crafted environment, it is a simulated and also an unnatural environment. You are putting people together unnaturally. But it is through this unnatural environment that causes people to gravitate towards one another. Either you gravitate or you push one another. And because of this, we need to understand this first before you can actually take anything back from this environment. Now, so where does it leave us when it comes to understanding this? So I'm speaking like a psychologist already, right? When it comes to team building. So from a perspective of a team building consultant that have been in this industry for the last 20, almost 30 years, I would say that there's a huge amount of psychology, organizational development psychology that's around team building activities. I think it is very irresponsible for team consultants or external vendors who goes into this expecting, because you can make a lot of money out of team building activities because it's at events. event-based. To go out there and say, okay, I know how to run activities, I know how to conduct team meeting. For you to say, okay, you will definitely be able to pull teams together. I'm not going to be very popular after saying this, all right? But I have to say that actually it is the duty and the responsibility of the people within the organization, especially the CEOs and the person who's in charge of culture. Most of the time we would fall under either HR or L&D, to actually understand the dynamics of your team. That is why whenever I engage with my clients, I like to engage with the CEOs. And even though the CEO said, oh, this is the realm of the HR, actually this is targeted to all the CEOs out there. It is your responsibility to build your team, not HR responsibility, not the L&D. It is from an operational standpoint, the HR and L&D are the ones who needs to actually be activated. But it is actually the CEO's role in driving what is it that you want to create for your organization, the kind of team that you want to have. So if you do not drive that, then it is very difficult for the HR to actually drive it closer to your strategy. If you just leave it to your, say for example, your branch managers or your line managers to do it, obviously you're just going to build cliques, because when the line managers take the team out, whether it's for team building or whether it's for lunch, you are definitely going to be able to get them to be so bonded together, all right? Because you know dopamine works that way. And this is where I feel the gap is with Cambodia. If you realize that in Cambodia, we love to go out for any kind of event. Whether it is dinner, lunch, and at every dinner and lunch or even any other team building activity, there is always going to be booze, fun times, whether it's dancing, drinking. And this is actually not to say that it is the psyche of Cambodians, but it is because I think Cambodians went through a period of time where it is tough, it is during the war, and post-war it is always about, look, let's not dive into that, let's not be have animosity among each other. Let's all group together. Let's all have this brother, and it is not wrong. It is right. But because of that, then it becomes the cornerstone of what team building is. So you only get that dopamine good feel, but it doesn't translate back to performance. It doesn't translate to productivity, and the problem when you have a team that is just solely built on a feel-good factor, a brother factor, is that I don't want to insult you. I don't want to have any conflict with you. And therefore, when this happens, we tend to hide those issues just because I don't want to offend someone else. And that is the biggest problem with any kind of corporate organization, because a really harmonious team, quote unquote, may not necessarily be good for the team.
So I think one thing to recognize here is, for sure, team building can be worse, but if it's not handled properly. So I think that's one thing that all leaders must accept and recognize that. Always accept, recognize first. So I want to dive into two parts on the CEO and the HR people.
Okay.
Right, the mindset of these people, what should they change? So you mentioned team building is a platform. Right, it's more than just having fun, building brotherhood, get to know you, building the dopamine level. That is only a byproduct, like you said, right? So what kind of mindset should the CEO change, or as a leader change, if they want to start to build it seriously? That's for the CEO. How about for HR and L&D people? They also don't want to be seen as just execution. But they're always being tasked to fix things. So how should they navigate with their leaders in that aspect?
So that's a very interesting question, and I like the way that you have also broken up to what the CEO should be thinking and how the HR and L&D should react. I think CEO's main concern here is about the business growth, and to ask the CEO to think about how to build culture and people is like, adding an added responsibility towards them. I'm not going to say, oh, it is not your job. CEO, you have to handle everything in your organization. And that goes, without saying.
Yeah.
And I think what the HR wants is we need to understand what is the vision, what is your strategy, and how do we actually convert that into people's strategy. So basically, in a sense, the CEO needs to not just provide the direction of the business, but at the same time, it needs to also establish where the culture of the organization is going to be. So a lot of times when we talk to business owners themselves, it's much easier. All right, and because the business owner will say that, look, this is my business, this is my organization, this is the kind of culture that I want, and it's much easier when the CEO is the business owner himself. All right, and these are the people that I really love to work with, and I just want to share one example is how this particular person transitioned from business owner to CEO, eventually turning his company into a public listed company as well, in the sense that because it is a family business, but transition family business into a company. So basically, there is always a history in terms of what made you who you are. All right, and in order to do that, you need to actually be able to bottle it, capture it, and then turn it into your company vision, mission, and values. In that way, it allows us to actually envision what is it, the kind of guiding principles, behaviors that you want. See, it goes all the way back. It is not just to say, okay, team building. Look, if you just ask me, what is the whole reason or objective for running a team building? So that people can work together, so that people will be able to produce and perform better when they're back at work. But a lot of times when we ask them, what does it look like at work? They will not be able to answer you. And it's fine. So the easiest way is to actually put a number to it. All right. How is it different? And that is why it's easy. So, for example, this year, and that is why we do a lot of team building activities. If we can, not to the end of the year, but at the beginning of the year. Because what you want to do is, at the end of the year is when you actually come up with your strategy, in October, etc. You say, okay, what is going to be the strategy for next year? And I'm going to be driving, I'm going to push 300% in terms of my business outcomes. Say, for example, this year, I hit 1 million, next year I'm going to push for 3 million. When you double up or triple, everything changes. A lot of things will change. Behaviors will need to change. Practices will need to change. Your systems need to change in order to meet those kind of business outcomes. But if you are running the same ship, running the same thing, running the same team activities and bonding sessions, expecting to push it by 3 times, you will have burnouts. You will have people who will say, I cannot achieve my target. Last year my target was this much, this year my target is so much. So a lot of times, these do not align. That's where the word alignment comes in. All right, alignment has a lot of meaning. First, alignment is between you and I, alignment between the teams, alignment between the C-suites, alignment between the heads, alignment between strategies. And this is why it's important when we talk about alignment, we're aligning to what? So I think the CEO needs to first establish an alignment to the business goals, business strategies. Now, once you sit down with that, then once you actually have it curated properly, that's when you invite the HR, the chief HR, the head of HR, the head of L&D, or the person who's in charge of culture and development, to now say, okay, what are the behaviors that you want to see different from what we did last year? Okay, and it could be as simple as clocking in, coming in at 7:30 every morning. Wow, why do I need to do that? That's what people will question you. Why do I need to change? Why do I need to actually do this? Last year I was actually hitting my targets. Are you not confident I'm going to be able to hit my targets this year? Last year you hit 1 million. This year I'm expecting you to hit 3 million. What is going to be different? Of course it's going to be different. I expect you to work harder. I expect you to push yourself harder. I expect yourself to push your team harder. You cannot expect that next year's 3 million is going to be unless you don't tell me what is 3 million, right? And that is why I think the CEOs need to establish from the very beginning the discipline in ensuring that there are certain changes that we require. And when that happens, that's when we're talking about asking people to go on a team building activity, so that we actually right now getting everybody to say, this is what we want to do next year. can we get some alignment from you to say that this is what we want to achieve together? And if we want to achieve together, what are some of our strategies that we want to do that is different? So it comes down slowly. As you can see, it will cascade slowly from the team building activity right now becoming a tool, not just the end of it. So the team building activity is, okay, fine, you come for the team building activity, I get them together, feel good factor, we can work together, it can be better. Right now is, what is it that you are here that you want to be able to bring it back to the workplace so that it will actually cascade into something that is much bigger. So all kinds of team building. Why I say team building doesn't work? Because team building activity in programming itself doesn't work in isolation. It needs to work in a full system, and which means that team building happens where, and which is most important, back at the workplace. So you need to actually assess what are the ways that we're working like right now that is actually not incongruent with what team outcomes is supposed to be like. Can we assess that? Are we open enough to address it? Now, if we do not use this team building as a bridge, it's very, can be very offensive, can be also very challenging, because when you talk to somebody in the office and say you're not performing at the rate that you're doing, straight in your face, you will get a very confrontational approach. All right. Now this is where I come back and say team building would work, because team building provides you an environment that is a bit more superficial, so that when you address those things, those behaviors, those outcomes at the team building activity, it is less confrontational. But you need to draw parallels back at the workplace so that we can say that this, isn't it the similar thing that's happening out there? We don't talk, we don't communicate, we don't address issues, we don't confront potential negative behaviors. And if we do it here, why can't we do it here? And this is where the real challenge is, bringing it back. So actually the team building activity is not about team building. Team building is what happens here. So we need to actually do a pre-team building analysis to actually understand how the team work here. We need to know who is what. We need to know who is the slack. I'm not saying it happens but basically who is the head honcho, who is the person who, there are different kinds of characters. If you have a team of 30, you will know. Even if a team of 3 also, you will know who is the one who is the one. That's exactly who is the slack. Look, this is the fact. Okay? Nobody wants to admit that they are the slacking one. Nobody wants to admit that they are the one that is not producing. Everybody will think that they are the one that is they are the ones who are the producing, the one who is communicating well. They think, and that's what we are here to do. We are here to actually open up so that we can understand these are the differences that we have. These are the potential pitfalls that we might have just because we are all different. And that is why now I see a lot of organizations and also a lot of team building experts going very deeply into personality profiles, understanding how these different, we have so many now, from DISC to MBTI, to team management profiles, to Harrison's, there are so many, and then it's fine because it's all commercial, but they are underpinned on certain human behaviors of extroversion, Carl Jung's understanding. But basically, that is a very important element. So if you are already doing that, it's good to know, but what do you do with that knowledge? How do you then actually address? And that is what team building programs are meant to do. But the understanding in crafting a team building program is that it is meant to do it, but you need to know that it cuts both ways. So when we want to do a team building activity, I like to give this analogy. And this is actually for the HR and the L&D team, and for the CEO to be much, much more aware. That when you roll, just imagine a snowball, all right? A team building activity is an organization like a snowball. When you roll down a snowball on a cliff that is full of snow, and it goes down, when you roll down the ball, it will generally gain momentum, and also it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But the problem here is that when you have all these, for example, tweaks, sticks, all this rubbish that is along the way, if you roll it, it will also gather everything up, and then by the time it comes out, instead of a white snowball, you get a black, dirty snowball.
Yeah.
At the bottom of your whole, so after 18 months, you do your program, and then you say, it's not what we intended to be. Yeah. It's becoming worse. And that is because we did not clear the path. We did not prepare the path that was proper. And that is the systems behind it. That is where you need to actually understand that when you bring them out for a team building program, when you bring them out from a team building program, know for a fact that there will be an outcome. But you need to know what the outcome is going to be. And that's why you need to craft the outcome. It's easier said than done. I know it is no magic wand. Even if you ask me or you ask any top team builder or whatever, we'll just tell you that it will be like that, but we cannot guarantee the result. Why? Because human beings are different. And we react to things that are differently. One thing might work with one particular team, and you use the same formula and you bring it to another team, it just fails completely. And therefore it is case by case basis. You can use this case as a sample and say, okay, look, we did it like this with this company, based on this is the scenario, and we think that it might also have the same result. We think. So in a way, if I use the same analogy, if you clear out, and then when you start the team building, you roll the team building ball down, at least you can remove as much dirt as you can before you reach, so that because to unroll it, to roll back, it's so hard. It's not impossible. I don't think there's anything that's impossible. You can, but it takes more effort. It takes more money and resources, and maybe along the way when you push down, you might lose a lot more or a few good people. Yeah. So that is why, for me, now, 30 years wiser, I hope, or older, I've realized that in order for us to do any form of team building activity, before I get myself involved into it, I will be standing on top of the hill, looking down on where you want to be, but at the same time looking left and looking right and say, these are some of the pitfalls. Let's address some of these pitfalls. And mind you me, most of these pitfalls are not people, they are systems. Because people, you can adapt to the different systems. In fact, you are an extrovert, I'm an introvert. We have different type of personality types. Yeah. It's not rocket science, but it's not easy as well. It's just that eventually you can adapt and sit with it. But the systems, if it's not properly defined, that's when it becomes problematic. Why? Because how do you actually reward somebody? Is it fair? Yeah. How do you actually make sure that certain performance are actually addressed, and how do you build that capability? How do you also enhance this capacity? All of this is what HR and L&D needs to do. But if you're just looking at it from an operational standpoint without linking it back and aligning it to your strategy, you are also just going in isolation, and that is where a lot of the L&D professionals fail to do, is because my job is just to train, my job is just to ensure that you come in, I can build your capacity, build your capability, and you're done. Right? Now, I'll tell you the reason why most people think that way is because generally it doesn't differ much, right? All right? But there is a small percentage that will still gain a lot more traction, is that when you can link, it's almost like a turbo battery or charger pack that you put in. Yeah. You can do a 90%, but this 10% will give you a 300% jump. And this 10% is where you link it with your CEO. If you have a very close relationship with your CEO, where your CEO tells you, this is what I want, 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 I'm telling you, your 10% boost becomes a 300% outcome productivity charge. It's like a charger pack. If you play computer games, I put in a booster charger pack, you will get that. Yeah. Otherwise, you just get a 90%. And that is where the dangerous part is, because the 90% can go all the way down to 40, 30, 40%, because you don't get that mindset shift. Yeah. Hi, I'm Ivan, and after 30 years of being in the industry, running team building activities, programs, as well as corporate consultancy sessions, I've come to realize that team building is not just an event, it is a series of interventions. So come and join me on my Elemental series, talking about team building doesn't work, and I will show you how to craft better team intervention strategies to help you engage with your team and also increase performance and productivity in your organization.
If this session makes you feel slightly uncomfortable, I think that is a good sign. It means your mindset has moved beyond activities into design. So for HR, L&D specialists, leaders, managers, CEOs, anyone who is ready to make a change, Evans will be running a 2-day masterclass on behavioral design, teaching you how to reframe team building activities into a more deliberate, sequential behavioral system helps you to make the real change you need in your company. More details in the description, caption above, and I hope to see you there. Thanks again for listening to SLA Work Smarter Daily. See you next time.